chime.
The Mike Devine chime, invented by Mark Panopoulos and taken further by Mike Devine.
There we go.
Who showed me up last week when he was on the show and changed our chimes forever.
And I loved it.
Yeah. And
Leah was quite happy to make that change right away.
Yeah.
That wasn't a problem. So, welcome back, everybody. Big Daddy Russ Orton. I'm Lee Lakin. Our Loosey Goosey Air Radio News. And it's really not much about news. It's more about trivia. Of course, we got Leah Lylewood, our trivia expert here. That's a producer and mom spit and so forth. We're not going to call her the other name, but
microphone plugger inner.
Yeah, that too.
Too.
Yeah,
So
our other microphones died, so we're back to this one. So it's a little louder.
Yeah,
but that's okay.
It's old school, you know. I feel like one of those old guys.
They're great little mics, these things, man. They work fantastic.
And they're not expensive.
We're brought to you by Edmonton Tourism, and there's so much more to Edmonton than the Oilers and the Edmonton Mall, of course. There's,
right.
There's hiking trails, there's snowmobiling in the wintertime, it's a gorgeous place, and of course a place of native culture too.
Absolutely.
So hop in there, and
lots of native culture.
When you think about coming to Canada, check out Edmonton, tourismedmonton.com. Now the major headlines, I can't believe this one.
We were talking about this off air, right?
Alec Baldwin was charged with involuntary manslaughter over the Russ shooting. Can you believe that? How can they do that? He didn't do anything wrong.
He got handed something that was told that this was the tool for the job. It was safe, and it wasn't. That's not his fault. He didn't load it. He didn't prepare or unprepare or whatever.
It's the person that loaded the gun that should be charged.
Why would they have real bullets?
Why would they anyway?
Why would they even have real bullets? I don't understand that. But yeah, that's it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Well, when you're charged with involuntary manslaughter, you don't go to jail, but it is on your record. And,
well, that too, exactly, right? Even if he gets, probation or whatever, it's now on your record.
That must be heartbreaking for him, and I'm not a big fan of his. Don't get me wrong, the guy's a bit of a dick. But in the same breath, you have to say, you didn't do anything wrong. Not a murderer,
Like, are you guilty now these days instead of innocent until proven guilty? Or, seeing a lot of that happen these days. People are being, because it's in the media and they're being charged with it, doesn't mean they're guilty. They still have their day in court.
I still shake my head at the Americans and some of the decisions they make. Things.
Yeah, definitely.
Like their politics is so intensely intricate. This has to fit into this, to this. The Speaker of the House there, that was just a ridiculous.
A shit show that was.
Just ridiculous. Get on with it.
Yeah.
Stop it. You know what I mean?
Oh, that was funny.
Anyway.
Need more than a slap on the wrist.
U.S. rock legend, of course, David Crosby has died at the age of 81. Part of our youth, I guess.
Some of the best harmonies in the music industry came out of those guys.
Of all time.
When they were together at their peak, you could not harmonize any better than that.
They were the top of their profession.
Absolutely.
And they left such a mark on music and on our society.
Yeah.
When you hear a 60s song,
think of how many of their songs.
It's going to be a CSNY or CSN song.
Think of how many of their songs really have been used in movies worldwide.
So many.
Tons of them.
So many.
So yeah, it was a big shock. Jeff Beck as well.
Jeff Beck as well. Two legends all within a week.
Yeah. And they were good friends.
And John Carreef, the rock doctor, we're going to rerun it on 108 and GTA this weekend. A 1-hour Jeff Beck tribute. Watch Facebook.
Oh right, you're talking about that.
And he put a great show together with the interview with Jeff Beck. And saw the other side of Jeff. You always think of Jeff as
he was a funny guy.
You always thought of him as a big rock star, and he was, who played probably the greatest guitarist of all time. That's arguable, I know.
Very arguable, boy.
Yeah, but he's in there.
Oh God, yeah.
But he was a guy that was.
He's in the top. He was in the top.
You look at Rolling Stones top 100 guitar players. I think Jeff Beck was in the top 20. I believe. He was in the top 20.
He would. Yeah.
He was in the top 20.
He was a god, and
a lot of people don't realize.
But a regular guy.
Yardbirds. He played with Rod Stewart for decades. Like a lot of people I know people that are not music people. I know, Jeff Beck, what do you mean? Like they'd heard of the Jeff Beck group, they'd heard the name, but they didn't realize the influence
How
he
much
had.
influence he had on everything.
Like half of Rod Stewart's hits were written by Jeff Beck.
That's right. That's right. People Get Ready was recorded with Jeff.
Exactly.
And the thing that by listening to John Carreef's show on Jeff was that I learned how many bad times he had when he was starting off. He was starving to death. He couldn't put money in his car for gasoline. You know what I mean? To get from gig to gig to gig.
Yeah.
Right? He used to fight with Rod Stewart and who'd pay for the breakfast that morning. You know, it was that bad for all of them.
And, you know,
But that doesn't surprise me because in the real world,
That's the
people
way it
don't
is.
just all of a sudden, even in the 60s and 70s, it's not, oh, that's a good tune, here you go, here's $1 million.
Exactly.
We'll get you going and record. It's still a struggle.
A lot of musicians in the 60s and 70s made sweet fuck all.
$2 to see a concert.
Well, not just that. The record companies took so much of
Everything.
the money. They took ownership of music even in a lot of cases. And that changed through the late 70s, early 80s when musicians started finally going, don't screw you.
And so they should.
Absolutely. And, you know, record companies were terrible. Watch a good example. Watch that Elvis movie. The amount of money that Elvis actually made was peanuts compared to the amount of money that was made by his name. You know, so it's sad to see. You know, this kills me. How did a 12-year-old boy do this?
A 12-year-old boy reels in a great white shark off the coast of Florida. Imagine
I
that.
didn't hear that.
Throwing
Wow.
out the fishing pole and in comes a shark. Not only a shark, a great white shark.
Can you
Exactly.
imagine?
I caught a 6'8", 310-pound marlin. My buddy and I had to reel it in. It took us 3 hours to fight this fish to get it on board. We were exhausted afterwards, and we were full-grown adults. How did a 12-year-old boy do that?
I'll tell you, it's
That
just
must
amazing the stories that you get and it overcomes. And Zellers may come back to Canada this spring. Zellers,
we're gonna
Burlington, and all over Southern Ontario, across Canada.
Yeah, we're gonna get one in Burlington to start.
For our area,
For our
it'll be
area.
across Canada.
Bring back
And,
Canadian merchandise.
Bring back the Big Z burger, baby, and fries and gravy.
Oh, the sandwiches, man.
Hey, remember the skillet restaurant?
Oh, the skillet, that's it. Oh, love
Now
that.
that brings back memories. Gives me a lump in my
Me
throat
too.
because I remember going for my Big Z when I was this big. Mom, can I have a Big Z? Yes. I could barely see over the table. Just great memories. The world's oldest person, French nun sister Andre, she's died 118 years old.
That's crazy.
Uh,
I don't know if I'd want to live that long.
We can live that long. You just have to take care of yourself.
Actually, that's not necessarily true. For Big Daddy and I were talking about that earlier on today, and a lot of it's, I worked in nursing homes and long-term care homes for years, and I met lots of people that were 101, 102, 103, I think the oldest was 106 I met, and she was a spry lady. She drank her whiskey every day, she smoked her cigarettes.
Yeah.
It's genetics. There's a part of genetics that we have in our
There's
system.
a whole ball of wax with it.
Exactly.
There's a lot.
And booze has a lot to do with it. Okay?
Well, it
You look
depends
at people
again.
that drink, they look older. They do.
Some do.
Not
yes.
always. Not always.
I would
Some.
say that, I
Again,
quit
there's a
drinking.
That's
genetic
genetics.
aspect.
To me, that's genetics.
That's a genetic aspect as well. And because you got to remember, these people grew up in the 50s, the 40s and 50s when, you know, they were saving bacon grease just to coat their bread in it so that it wouldn't taste different. And, you know, it was a different world and a different lifestyle.
But we also didn't have the fast food to the abundance that we do now, whether it
Exactly.
be all different types or not. There are areas you go, there's malls on malls on malls, and 90% of it is all fast food.
And it's crap. And
Yeah.
it's crap.
Well,
and they
there's
didn't.
no nutrients. It's
They-
all
they
right,
grew-
right
You know what the
back.
best fast food is a submarine sandwich.
Yeah, but
It is.
a lot of it's got
But
preservatives
they,
in
but
it.
they
So
consider, well, I guess Subway's, I don't know what it is about Subway, but
No,
I
Mr.
love
Sub.
Subway.
Mr. Sub.
Mr. Sub.
That's
Isn't
what
that-
I grew up with.
Isn't that
up
funny
here,
how when
so-
you go to these chains, Mr. Sub and Subway, that when you make a sandwich at home, it doesn't taste as good as theirs.
mine tastes better.
Really?
Oh God, yeah.
I think
Damn
so
right.
too.
I can't get that taste.
Damn right.
I
Mine
think
tastes
it's
way
the bread.
better.
I think it's the bread.
Anyways,
There's an aspect of that, but
Anyway,
you know,
the
it-
history of
we
submarines.
need to get.
and that's the thing too. Like I said, there's an aspect of genetics that are there because almost every person I asked that was over 100 years old had the same answer. I had my whiskey every day. I had my cigar or cigarette. They lived in a routine that was so tight. I think part of that became a bit of it as well. That they lived that routine. Their last 30, 40 years of their life. That they just carried on.
And they only have one wrinkle, and they sit on it.
Well, they sit on everything. You and I know that.
I have to
as
think
we
about
age,
that
so.
more primarily. All right, let's get through these. Greta Thunberg, pardon me, carried away by police at a German mine protest.
Oh, I could just see the memes coming up for that one.
Oh, God.
Yeah, this is a funny story.
Plane crashes, ends up...
Plane lands.
Yeah, well, it lands on the highway near the airport in Markham, Ontario. People were driving home from work. There comes a plane. Oops, hello there. How are you?
That'd be freaky, eh?
And Gina Lollobrigida, the Italian legend, dead at 95. And don't ask what she died of. She was 95. Okay, but beautiful woman.
Gino passing away though, at 52.
Yeah. Gino Ojic.
Long-time Vancouver player. Oh yeah.
Tough, hard-nosed player from Quebec.
He was that next generation Tiger Williams.
Yeah.
Hey, that's where I put him in that category.
He's only 52.
Only 52.
I mean, they used to call him the Algonquin assassin. You know, if anybody deserves to have their own part in Slapshot the movie, it's Gino.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that.
God bless him. He was only 52, and a lot of crying and weeping in Vancouver over that because he was a big
long-time Vancouver. Yeah, oh yeah, they loved him there, man. He was their enforcer and did a good job, and
him and Pavel Bure.
Yeah, at that time.
Some noise.
So yeah, unfortunately, just some sad news in hockey, but
finally, the rare green comet that's going to be approaching Earth for the first time in 50,000 years. I don't remember the last one. I don't think we'll see the next one.
I think I was playing
was
hockey.
a few lives
I think
ago.
I was playing hockey or something that night.
Let's go into Leah's trivia here. We gotta get an intro for that. You know?
Yes.
Maybe we'll get Bud the Spud on a stick in here and we'll record some intro for Leah's trivia. She doesn't want to hear about her own relationship with Bud the Spud on a stick, does she? Oh, God.
Just trying to let that rumor die.
Do you want to start?
Sure.
You go. They were.
Many people do know this, but it's still a great little tidbit. And lyricist Bernie Taupin, who wrote most of Elton John's songs, wrote the ballad "Someone Saved My Life Tonight" about the night he stopped Elton from committing suicide with a gas oven. If you ever get a chance to see that Elton movie that came out, pre-pandemic, right before the pandemic?
Yeah.
Watch it, man. Watch it. And it was, I was involved at that time in a little bit of his career with my mom working for MCA Recording Studios. And there's actually a scene in the movie, and I think it was taken from the Toronto concert because the way he was dressed and the content of what was going on was what was happening when he was in Toronto that year. And a great movie, so you get a chance to watch it. Also, Charlie Watts, drummer of the Rolling Stones, if you didn't know, said, "You don't think I take this seriously, do you? It's just a fucking rock and roll band." And he made a huge career out of it, so right on to him. And,
what a smooth operator and an amazing dresser, Charlie Watts.
Oh yeah, he was always dressed to the nine, eh?
Oh, he was always just, you never saw him in a pair of jeans.
No.
He was always
respectful.
Yes, absolutely. A little bit of history for January the 20th, 1965, Alan Freed, who brought black music to a white audience as a DJ and concert promoter in Cleveland and New York, dies at the age of 41 of cirrhosis, caught up in the payola scandal. Freed's brother says he died of a broken heart because they took his microphone away.
Yeah.
And they really made Alan Freed.
Of course, that was his life.
And you know, at that point, I don't care what anybody says. Pretty much every DJ or announcer at that point was taking payola. He was the scapegoat.
He was famous. He was well known.
He was so famous. Exactly.
They made an example.
Yeah, and just a sad story all the way around. And to die,
Every rock and roll radio DJ owes their living to Alan Freed.
Absolutely.
He was the man that started it all on WHK.
That what I like to call a hype jock. He got people wanting to listen to him because he was exciting, he was fun, whereas up until that point, jocks were Well, today on the
you're
He was the creator. He's known to be the creator of rock and roll.
Pretty much.
Well, he named rock and roll.
He named rock and roll.
Exactly.
He gave it that title, right?
And rock and roll actually is a very sexual term. We won't go into that now, but it is. But I think you can imagine what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, not
is
at
sex.
all.
Rock and roll is sex.
Sex and drugs and rock and roll.
There you go.
1983, Kenny Loggins falls off the stage while making his entrance at a concert in Provo, Utah. The house lights were dim, so the crowd doesn't see it. The audience is stunned to learn that Loggins is being taken to the hospital where he's treated for broken ribs. Like, I hate broken ribs. I've had them before.
Gotta be the worst.
Oh, the
Never
show.
had him torn.
Gotta be the worst.
The show is rescheduled, and while recovering, Loggins writes the song "Footloose" with Dean Pritchard providing the title track for the movie as well. So, and no music in this town.
That was a great movie, wasn't it?
That was a great movie.
I can watch that every couple of years. I would watch.
Yeah, it's a feel good story.
Yeah, it is.
So but it's amazing where musicians can come right with some of their biggest hits.
Okay, we have this week. That doesn't say what year it happened. I would guess it would probably be the 90s. At the Triangle Ball, the first gay and lesbian inaugural ball, Melissa Etheridge, K.D. Lang, Janice Ian come out publicly declaring that they are gay and in same-sex relationships. Lang, Etheridge, and Janice Ian haven't been hiding their homosexuality. They just haven't announced it publicly because it's nobody's damn business anyway.
That too, exactly.
At the Triangle
I don't come
Ball,
out and say hi. I'm Lee. I'm heterosexual.
Yeah, hi. I like girls. My name is Big Daddy. How you doing?
I think that was 1993.
How you
I
doing?
think.
Yeah, how you doing?
When that happened.
What people do in their private lives is totally their own business. But anyway, at the Triangle Ball, they get it out in the open, make it clear that they are gay and proud of it, and so they should be. God bless them. I love Janice Ian. She's just, at 17 is one of those songs that's really well thought out.
Yeah.
And she had Society's Child as well in the 60s. She's been around forever. But the other two aren't bad either. K.D. Lang and Melissa Etheridge,
Melissa, great career. Katie as well.
Canadian gal?
Canadian gal, yeah, definitely. And I kind of knew she was. Like, it was that, just got that vibe from her that, it was so. Here's a wee tidbit. Pete Buck from REM. I was 4 in the 60s and started, as far as I'm concerned, they were terrible times. Television was stupid. There was a war going on. Rioting was going on in the streets. It was all right for the Byrds and the Beatles. They had limos and bodyguards.
Well, I thought the 60s was an interesting decade. You can probably the most interesting decade
I think
of all time.
the early 40s, late 30s and early 40s would have been the shittiest decades to kind of run through, like.
The happiest, though, because the war was over. The war,
not the early 40s, but.
No, not the early 40s.
I was going to say, you go more into the 50s, it was over.
Yeah.
50s was a very clean decade. From what we saw of it, it was clean.
Well, it was just on the turn.
Yeah.
It was a Leave It to Beaver, Mom and Dad, how are you, son? Sit down and I'll tell you a story kind of stuff. What's the right word I'm looking for? It was kind of laid back in the 50s. And nobody really did everything. Like when Elvis tried to do his and they say, don't do that.
Well, they just took the camera up, so it cut them off.
It's a different world.
No, God, yeah, very different.
100%.
And, far more reserved. That's what they were looking for back in the 50s. Now, Jimmy Boyd was just 13 when he received his holiday hit that he put out. But that didn't stop his song from being temporarily banned from radio. And the song is about a boy who wakes up to see Mom and Dad in a Santa Claus costume kissing under the mistletoe. Now, the Catholic Archdiocese of Boston blasted the song for suggestive language. They said it linked Christmas to sex. Boyd went to meet with the church leaders to explain his thinking behind the song, and it was pulled from the ban. But they even wanted to ban I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus.
And again, when you talk about it, it was different times back then, right? Everything was taboo, especially when it came to sex or drugs or, rock and roll. And people don't do those things, but behind closed doors, they're okay.
Yeah.
Was that...
1966, Donovan.
Yeah. It airs on British TV. The film follows singer Donovan as he goes to parties and makes music. In one of the scenes, one of his associates is seen smoking marijuana, which is kind of shocking. This makes Donovan a target for the London drug squad, who make them their first high-profile bust when they arrest him in June for possession of marijuana. Members of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones are later victims as well.
What happened after that? They all went and they had some pizza.
Exactly. Like, what are they doing? They're not out robbing stores or hurting anybody.
But
They went and had some pizza.
This is 1966, man.
That's it,
It's
man.
still not quite there yet.
No.
You know. When did they start smoking weed in Holland? Was it the 70s or the 60s?
71, I
I
think.
can't remember.
I think it was 71 when they brought that in.
1971, Alan Pissarro, a member of the Hells Angels biker gang, who stabbed an 18-year-old by the name of Meredith Hunter to death during a concert by the Rolling Stones at their Altamont Speedway concert in Livermore, California, December 6, 1969, is acquitted of murder after 17 days of testimony in which the jury sees footage of the documentary Gimme Shelter that shows the stabbing. The Hells Angels were actually hired as security at the concert, and when Hunter brandished a gun, Pissarro killed him. The Stones kept playing. They didn't even know he was dead.
Didn't even know what was going on.
Just kept on going.
And that was actually Meredith, which I didn't know until I knew the story, but it's actually a guy. I thought it was a girl. I didn't know until I did this. I knew the story, but I didn't know it was a guy until I put the pictures up.
Why did he pull a gun on
Well,
Hells Angels? How stupid can you be?
Exactly.
Maybe on psychedelics. Maybe he was high. Who knows?
Oh, I bet you he was high.
Oh, most likely.
I bet
Still
you he
take
was high.
your life in your hands when you do that.
Yeah, but when you're high, when you're that high,
Yeah.
listen, anything goes sometimes for some people. Who
I'm
knows?
Superman, dude.
Didn't go so well for him.
He might have been doing it to have fun, thinking he was being funny, and it wasn't so funny.
He has some
Right?
brown acid, man.
Hey, why don't you tell us about Van Morrison?
Van Morrison back in '67 was banned for its suggestive lyrics. Actually, it came down to one lyric in particular, making love in the green grass. That was where the radio stations were going to draw the line. Despite the pushback, the song was a huge hit, and many radio stations comprised and released radio-friendly versions of the song that replaced the suggestive lyric with the phrase said earlier in the song, which was laughing and running, hey, and hey, hey. Okay.
That song, you know that song, how big, you probably think that was a hit all over the world. It was never a hit in the UK.
No.
It was
There's
a
a
hit
couple
here.
places it wasn't a hit.
And I think that is probably one of the reasons why, because the BBC were they still are. Well, they're not so much
Not
anymore.
so much anymore.
But the BBC
no, yeah.
back then was very strict on lyrics.
They were
I
brutal.
love this story here, and I laughed out loud when I was putting it together this morning. Snoop Dogg is born this week in history. Cortazar Calvin Brodus Jr., and he was born in Long Beach, California. And his parents called him Snoopy. You know why? His resemblance to Charlie Brown's pet beagle. And when you look at Snoop Dogg, he looks like Snoopy.
Well, now you're going to see it. Everybody's going to see it.
I'm going
now.
to see it now.
Every
I've
time
never
you
heard
look
that. I
that
don't know
up.
where you dug that up from.
That's where he
but
got his name.
That's the line of the week.
Yeah.
Snoop Dogg.
Snoop
Here he
Dogg.
is. Here's the
I
guy that
love
looks
Snoop.
like Snoopy. I love that guy.
I love Snoop. He's such a great guy.
Yeah,
it's
I
so
agree.
cool. And the shit he gets going on with Martha Stewart is hilarious.
Just a classy guy. And a guy you just want to hang around with because he's fun.
Yeah.
He's a fun guy.
Yeah. 1991, 3 teenagers are killed at an AC/DC concert in Salt Lake City, Utah, where they're crushed in the crowd. The band learns of the tragedy a few songs later, and they complete the show at the request of the fire marshal. So,
Yeah, because that would have been, it's a trampling and everything
Yeah,
else
that
at
would
that
have
point.
just led
It would have
to-
just gone south,
well,
right?
yeah, like you would have had people didn't
Worse.
care. They didn't care that people were killed or whatnot. They're there to see the concert.
Can you imagine the band members of the band?
How bad they
played?
felt?
They must have felt terrible.
Okay, here's a story. We went and saw. I took my kids to go see a band called the Cancer Bats. Never heard of these guys in my life. They were playing at Much Music downtown Toronto. My kids wanted to go. My daughter, who's an epileptic, had a seizure. The lights started and she hit the floor. This band stopped the show. The lead singer came down, carried her backstage. The bandmates were all around her. They got the paramedics in. They were
That's how it should be.
amazing. These guys were absolutely amazing, and they even said, no, we're not going to finish the show. We want to make sure you get to the hospital, yada, yada, yada. And by this time, my daughter was conscious, and she said, no, you guys go finish the show.
Just don't play strobe lights.
So, no, she stayed backstage.
Yeah,
She
You
stayed
have to
backstage.
watch those lights because it'll send people off that are epileptic. Right off it.
So
even the average person has a problem.
can have it, yeah. And so even after the show, they cut the show short. They did a short set, and then they came backstage and did photos, and they were just.
Whatever happened to them? I
They-
remember
they-
the name, but I guess we'd have to Google
I
it.
think with a lot of that screaming kind of punk style music just went underground. I think a lot of it went underground, and it was unfortunate because it's not necessarily my style of stuff. We had a local bar here actually last week raise some money for the food banks, and it was all punk bands that were playing.
Yeah,
their
that was
comedies.
great. That was great.
Yeah, it sounded like it went really well. So yeah,
All right, 2011. This is really cool.
Yeah.
The largest collection of Beatle memorabilia went on display in a new museum in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Rodolfo Vasquez, a 53-year-old accountant, turned his mammoth Beatles collection into a museum with more than 8,500 objects, setting the new world record for the largest collection of Beatles memorabilia. Some of the items included a box of condoms bearing the names of John Lennon and Yoko Ono,
which never used
a
them.
brick from the Cavern Club, a chunk of the stage from the Star Club in Hamburg,
Wow.
and certified copies of the band members' birth certificates. Among his favorite items were 64 boxes of chewing gum in the form of Beatles records.
Wow,
I love trivia.
that's a serious
stuff.
collection, man.
I love trivia stuff like that. I could spend hours just wandering around stores that like our local one there in Acton,
Vinyl Land.
Vinyl Land.
Yeah.
Just it's my kind of store, man.
Oh,
Old
God,
guitars,
and
old
you-
records.
Yeah, you could spend at least a couple hours in there, and it's not that big of a store, but there's so much to see.
Old
so.
traffic, old.
Yeah.
Old
And the clothes are really cool too.
Yeah, that's
I love the
cool
old
clothes.
gas station signs that you can
That
still
stuff too,
find
yeah.
in garages and stuff. Oh, just
That's why I love watching American Pictures.
Exactly.
The stuff they pull out and find is
I'm
amazing.
going, wow, I would love that.
Oh
I would
God,
love
yeah!
that, would
I got
love
to spot my wall for it
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Here's a little wee tidbit. The Byrds' "Turn, Turn, Turn" was the most popular version of that song. However, Pete Seeger wrote the song and recorded the original version of it. "Turn, Turn, Turn" is based on the book of
Ecclesiastes.
Ecclesiastes.
Yeah, that's one hell of a word.
3:18. Seeger explained why he based the track on that passage. "I was leafing through it when I came upon that poem," he recalls. "I leafed through it by chance, and maybe God let me know. Who knows?"
That's a great song.
Oh,
Turn,
God,
Turn,
yeah, it
Turn.
was
I love
massive
the
hit.
beginning of that song. Right out of a jingle. I'm showing my radio stuff again. 2003. Oh no, I'm skipping
Yeah.
here. 1967, London's Daily Mail newspaper carries an article about potholes in Blackburn, Lancashire. That inspired John Lennon to mention it in the daily life. And you often will listen to Beatle lyrics and wonder, where the hell did they get that from?
And that lyric is one, when I saw that, is one that in that song is one of those lyrics that always,
It stands
it
out.
pops out.
Yeah.
It
Right, so when I
stands-
saw that, I was like, okay.
Well, you write it that way, right? You write it and perform it that way to
But
make
it
sure
was
it
just,
does. It's-
yeah, it pops. Right.
This is an interesting one, and I didn't know this one. 2003, a long-lost recorder featuring John Lennon and Mick Jagger was set to spark a bidding war at a London auction. The acetate record was recorded in 1974 with Jagger singing the blues song "Too Many Crooks" and Lennon playing the guitar. The track was never released because the two artists were both signed to different record companies, and again, that comes out of that story we talked about with record companies. And,
Contracts.
you know, crazy. Like, you imagine if that got released.
Well,
at
I
that
don't know why
time?
they don't release it as a single now. Surely somebody can get together and put. I'd like to hear that actually.
Same here.
2003, that happened. In 2011 for this one, a dentist in Alberta bought
Oh,
a tooth
right.
at an auction that belonged to John Lennon back in 2011 for $32,000, and has sent it to the U.S. University to see if the scientists there can clone John Lennon. The Red Deer-based
Probably still
dentist says the
something.
investment is one of the best decisions of his life, and adds that if scientists can clone sheep and mammoths, surely they can clone people. It'll be a mark on my headstone that I had a hand in bringing back one of rock's greatest stars, he said. I don't think so, but it's a nice gesture. But, I mean, it's one of those stories that you just have to shake your head at. But, how much is a tooth of John Lennon worth?
Obviously, 32 grand.
Whatever the market will.
And a rotting tooth at that.
Yeah, like
A rotting tooth. Now, there's a bit of trivia we'll save for another time. But what's going on with Sting there?
yeah. He was Sting, obviously, of the Police. He was quoted, "Did I say I could make love for 8 hours? What I didn't say was that includes 4 hours of begging and then dinner and a movie as well."
Which is about 8 hours.
That's about 8 hours. That works out to about the same.
1964, the musical Hello, Dolly opens on Broadway, starring Carol Channing in the title role. The show is a huge hit, and a recording of the title song by Louis Armstrong goes to #1 in May, knocking the Beatles from #1 with Louis Armstrong. and
No
Hello,
easy
Dolly.
task knocking the Beatles off of that.
Really,
That's for
especially
sure.
with a Louis Armstrong song.
Yeah.
But it was popular, very popular.
1969, Aretha Franklin's attorney calls police in Ocala, Florida, to let them know the woman who has been performing there as Franklin, quite convincingly, is a fake. The imposter, Vicky Jones, is arrested but set free when it becomes clear that she was coerced into the scheme by an unscrupulous promoter. She became popular live draw when news of her arrest and how she can believably sing like Aretha gets out. I'm sure she got tons of work after that.
She looked a lot like her too, with makeup and whatnot. She could be a double.
Yeah.
Yeah, but did she really have that Aretha sound? That's what I'm fine, right?
Apparently she did.
1996, Jamaican police mistake Jimmy Buffett for a drug smuggler and shoot at his seaplane, the Hemisphere Dancer, after it lands in the water. Bono of U2 is on board with his family, along with Island Records head Chris Blackwell. Plane has hit a few times, shattering the windshield and doing damage to the fuselage. And no one is hurt, though. It's was absolutely terrifying. And I honestly thought we were all going to die, Bono said. The Jamaicans apologized and tried to convince the tropical troubadour to come back soon now, man.
Yeah.
Buffett turns the incident into the song Jamaica Mistake," when he sings, "We only come for chicken. We're not the ganja plane. Well, you should have been their faces when they finally realized we were not some cooked up cowboys sporting guns and alibis. It was Jimmy Buffett singing Margaritaville on the plane wing there as he's landing."
Can you imagine though having
Looking
family
first.
with you? Like Bono's family was there. That would have been. It's funny now, but at that time, with gunshots coming through the glass, and you got kids with you.
I bet you they weren't laughing on that plane.
I don't think so. Not in the beginning.
Not long ago, 2021, during the pandemic, renowned producer Phil Spector dies at the age of 81 from complications of COVID, where he was still in jail serving time for killing the actress Lana Clarkson in 2003.
Well, he's always on the straight side.
That guy had some seriously troubled bullshit going down. Yeah.
The afro it made him look like a giant Brillo pen.
I know.
I mean, it was ridiculous. And he was probably one of the greatest record producers of all time.
But he was also one of the greatest
Again, that's
criminals
questionable.
and
And yeah.
didn't end.
Yeah, he had a lot of problems. All right, we got January 16th, 1938. Benny Goodman brings jazz to Carnegie Hall. Clarinetist, Benny Goodman, who many call an improvisational. There we are. Genius breaks through culture barriers to play the first ever jazz concert at Carnegie Hall.
And
I love that.
Jazz became huge after that.
I love that old big band sound.
The big band stuff I really do. When I think of guys like Benny Goodman and even the oh my God, Glenn Miller, another good one. Even the band that was behind Really Big Shoe, what the hell is his name? The guy we think
Ed Sullivan.
Ed Sullivan. That band he had behind him was insane. They were fantastic, man. And I was fortunate enough too that my stepdad, he listened to some Big Bang stuff, so I got to listen to it. It was, yeah.
I worked in radio when I was very young. We had a music
Still had tapers on.
Yeah, We had a Music of Your Life
He does
format, and I learned a lot about Benny Goodman.
Yeah,
and
you would
John
back
Lennon.
then, yeah.
And it was the music of my parents. I
Yeah,
should say.
absolutely.
You know, they came from the generation before the Beatles came,
Right.
came along.
Oh, my dads did too. Like they were, you know, influenced by many things before the Beatles, but you know, I think we're all fortunate for being able to have that in our lives. That
Well, because you've got different eras.
well,
that
you're
we've
just
gone
such a vast, you know, all the way
at
to today.
prime, all the way through,
Yeah,
right? That were
You
big
know.
eras.
Well, rock and roll really is a combination of old country, old blues,
it's
old
everything.
rhythm and
The
blues, old
influences
soul
come from all of
music.
that.
There's a lot of country and a lot of in rock and roll. People don't realize that.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
got very much influenced by country music. I mean, you look at Jerry Lee, Johnny Cash. They were huge on the country charts as well.
As well, yeah.
And they had influence that moved on and on. The black music, the rhythm and blues, speaks for itself. The blues. You know,
Even when you get
stuff
into
that Freed
the
played.
the gospel and
Gospel?
stuff like that, you know, you look at Elvis Presley. A lot of his stuff was based on pure gospel.
Pure gospel.
Well, Memphis, I mean,
Yeah.
where he
it's,
lived.
you know,
You
so-
could stay Sunday morning. You know, you should really go out and stand at a street corner in Memphis and hear some of those.
Oh, I can
churches.
I've done it.
imagine.
I went into a church. I
Unbelievable.
had
Some of those
a
choirs.
blast, man. I had so much fun, and they treated me so well. I was the only white guy in there.
Yeah.
I was in Jackson, Mississippi.
It makes the hair.
36.
It makes the
Well-
hair on the back of your neck stand up when you
And-
hear a really good choir in a church.
And the food
Especially in the
afterwards.
South, man.
Oh, the food.
Cat's ass.
We go out at a beautiful white church on the corner, like you said. I went in, and it was. Everybody stopped, turned and
What a
left.
party, though, eh?
Dude, I had so much fun. And afterwards, like I said, the spread of food out back.
And the
It
spread
was
of joy down there.
Oh, it
They
was
just,
just-
you know,
And they're all trying to push their, you know, nieces on me and their granddaughter. Oh, she's cute. Want to date? You know, I'm married. So I'm good. But no, like I said, the reception I got, I ended up doing it twice. I did it in Jackson, Mississippi,
Nice.
and I did it in Nashville, Tennessee. And both times, wow, what an experience!
All right, we're going to wrap it up because Don Cherry, of course, has been on the radio side before.
That's right.
So we have to
We're
get
at
the news
37.
coming up on radio and stuff. But thanks for joining us. Don't forget, Radio GTA, FM108.ca. The Air Radio Network. We have community radio as well, Halton Hills Radio. So much to talk about, so much to do. Don Cherry, Mike Devine, welcome to the team.
Right on.
We're brought to you by Edmonton Tourism. Check out Edmonton. It's a beautiful place to see the wilderness, to see our native culture, to see the Edmonton Oilers, to see the mall. Thank you so much for being with us. And of course, we're Halton Hills, Ontario, Canada, Canada's hometown. And we're the Air Radio Network.
Big Daddy Russ Horton, I'm Lee Lakin, Leah Liowood. Have yourselves a great week. We'll catch everybody next week. And thanks for tuning in.
All right, man.
You got that down now, buddy.
I'm doing all right.
You got her
I'm a
down.
rock star. I played the spoons on Nova Heart. Did you know that?